Ah, come here, kid. Sit with me for a spell. I've got a story to share, one that's been dancing in my mind for longer than I care to admit. You know, regret is a funny thing. It's quiet, almost shy. It slips in through the back door of your thoughts when you're not looking, and then it lingers. Ever wonder why regret feels so heavy? Like you're carrying something you never asked for? That's because regret is weight, not of stone or iron, but of what might have been. Hey, why is this hard? Because regret speaks of choices, of roads not taken, of words left unsaid, each echoing in the halls of your memory. When I was young, I made plenty of mistakes, hasty words to loved ones, chances I never took, paths I left unexplored, regret piled up brick by brick. But here's something folks don't tell you. Regret has purpose. It's not just a burden, it's a guide, a whisper, a nudge toward something better. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He'd nod at regret. See it as an exam, a chance to learn, to grow, to change course. I remember a day many years ago. You know your grandma. She baked my favorite pie that afternoon. I was in a hurry, racing off to chase a deal. I didn't pause. I didn't taste. I barely said thank you. Later, I learned she'd passed that night, and I never said sorry. Never told her I loved her like I felt it. That's regret living inside your chest, heavy, sharp. And for a while, it felt impossible to shake. But I learned something important. First, you name the regret. Speak it out. Hold it in your hand like a small stone. Feel its edges. Say, "This was my fault," or "I wish I'd been braver." That moment of honesty, it's sacred. It cracks open your heart. Second, you learn from it. Stoics call this progress. You accept what happened, then you decide how to act next time. Regret becomes your teacher, not your jailer. And third, you let it go, not by forgetting, but by forgiving yourself first. Then others, if they're part of the picture. I won't lie, my dear, there were times I lost my way. Let regret chain me to past mistakes. I felt stuck, but then I remembered an old lesson from Buddhism. They say suffering comes from clinging. When you cling to what was, you miss what can be. So I sit in the garden, watch the slow dance of leaves, breathe in the evening air, and I'd whisper, "I forgive you, old friend." That's what I called my regret. Old friend, because it never really left. But it stopped hurting as much. You might ask, why am I like this? Regret isn't weakness. It's proof you care, that you notice the weight of your choices, that you value better days. Over time, regret can shape you, like wind shapes a river's path. It carves your edges, guides your flow, but you decide the direction. Here's a thought from existentialism. You are free, free to choose, free to act, but with freedom comes responsibility. Regret reminds you of that responsibility. So when regret taps you on the shoulder, say, "I hear you." Then ask, "What lesson do you bear today?" Maybe it tells you to apologize. Maybe it tells you to take that trip you've been avoiding. Maybe it just wants you to be kinder to yourself. And my dear, if you carry regrets from years ago, know this, it's never too late. The best apologies come from a sincere heart, even if they're whispered decades later, sometimes in silence, sometimes in a letter you never send. The act of offering that apology liberates you. Regret can be a gentle friend, a quiet guide. It won't shout from the rooftops. It'll speak in whispers as you drift to sleep or in moments of stillness when you least expect it. But you have the choice to listen, to learn, to release, to forgive, to grow. And now, kid, let me tell you more. There are days when regret feels like a dull ache, not sharp, just there. A constant companion on long walks, on quiet afternoons, even in laughter. Why does it linger? Because regret cares. It wants to help. It wants to show you where you can grow. Think of a young man I knew once. Bright eyes, big dreams. He chased them hard, skipped birthdays, missed weddings, forgotten calls to home. Then one day, he paused, saw the photo of his little sister on the fridge. He hadn't seen her smile in years. Regret sat heavy in his chest. He did 3 things. First, he called her. Voice trembling, he said, "I'm sorry." Then he booked a train ticket. And finally, he promised himself, "I'll never miss her smile again." That's how regret guides. It points you back to what matters. You might ask, but what if regret knocks me off my feet? Then I'll tell you this. Stoicism teaches us to welcome hardship. Marcus Aurelius wrote letters about pain and loss. He said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Regret is an impediment, but it can fuel action. So, my dear, when regret shows up, breathe deep, acknowledge it, then ask, "What do you want me to do today?" And do it. I remember the first time I faced real regret. I was stubborn, thought I knew better than anyone. A friend offered help. I brushed him off, said I had it under control. Later, I failed, big time. The project collapsed. I lost money, but worse, I lost trust. Regret burned. I felt ashamed. Then I thought, what would the wise do? I wrote a letter, honest, simple, no excuses, just, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." He forgave me, and our friendship grew stronger. That's the power of regret used well. Let me share a quiet practice, nothing fancy. Each night before you rest, think of one regret, big or small. Then say, "I learned." That's it. One sentence. Say it aloud or in your mind. "I learned." This small ritual plants a seed. It shifts regret from burden to lesson. Over weeks, you'll notice the ache softens. You feel lighter, your heart a bit braver. Even science backs this up. Modern psychology calls it reframing. You take a negative thought and find the lesson. You turn regret into growth. You see, kid, life isn't about never slipping. It's about rising after you fall. Regret is the alarm. It rings when you stumble. Then it points you to stand. Now, let's talk about the weight of words. They can break you, or they can heal you. Maybe you said something you can't take back. I was too harsh. I was unfair. Ever felt that sting? Here's what I learned from the existentialists. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote about choices. He said each choice defines us, but it also frees us, even if it hurts. So I'd find the courage to own my harsh words. I'd say, "I'm sorry I hurt you." Simple, brave, true. Often the other person would say, "I forgive you." And just like that, a weight lifted off both our shoulders. My grandma once told me, "A sincere apology is like rain on dry soil. It softens the ground. It lets new things grow. Regret is the dry soil if you never thank someone. If you never say sorry, that soil cracks. It withers. But an apology waters it. Sometimes, kid, you may regret never having the chance. A lost loved one, a burned bridge. What then? You write a letter you never send. Pour your heart onto paper. Tell them you love them. Tell them you're sorry. Seal it, keep it, or burn it if it helps you let go. It doesn't matter if they never read it. What matters is you spoke the truth. You honored your regret. You freed your heart. You might feel silly, but that's okay. Embrace it. Feel the release. Let's pause and ask, why is this all so important? Because regret is memory. Memory is life. And life is precious. We're here for a blink, like a single breath of wind. Regret reminds us of each precious moment. It teaches us to say, I love you more often. To pick up the phone, to hug tighter, to choose kindness when it's easier to stay silent. There's a concept in mindfulness called beginner's mind, seeing things fresh as if you're new to them. Regret can nudge you into beginner's mind. It shows you what you overlooked. Then it invites you to see again. So look around. Notice the light on the table. Notice the cup of tea steaming. Listen to the creak of the floorboards. Notice the beat of your heart. And if you catch a whisper of regret, welcome it. Say, thank you. Then ask, what do you want me to do now? Maybe it's to call your brother. Maybe it's to write that note to your grandmother. Maybe it's to start a new project you shelved. That's the quiet magic of regret. It holds you accountable. It guides your compass. But it doesn't chain you forever. My dear, the world has enough regret already. We don't need more. We need understanding. We need growth. So let regret be your partner, not your enemy. Let it walk beside you, shining a light on the path. And know this, I've carried regret too. I still do, every day. But now I see it differently. It's not a weight that breaks me. It's a signpost, a gentle tap on my shoulder saying, hey, there's a chance to do better. And that chance is life itself. Relationships, they matter most. We spend our lives weaving bonds, and sometimes we break them. Regret comes in soft steps. It reminds us of words left unsaid, of hugs we skipped, of laughter we let fade. Ever felt that hollow pause after a harsh word? It lingers, like a room emptied of light. But regret asks a question. Could you have done differently? Yes, you could. And that could is your path forward. I once argued with a dear friend over nothing. Anger flared for a moment, then silence. Days passed. Regret settled in like dust. So I picked up the phone. Voice shaky, I said, I miss you. Simple words, yet they dug out the dust. And the light came back. Career choices, they hold their share of regret too. Maybe you stayed too long at a job that wore you thin. Maybe you left too soon in search of better. Either way, regret sits on your shoulder and whispers, what did you learn? That whisper can grow into wisdom. Think of Aristotle's golden mean. He taught balance. Not too much, not too little. Regret can push you toward balance. It shows where you tipped too far. Then you adjust. Closer to center. Closer to a life well lived. Sometimes regret flows from opportunities missed. A trip you postponed, a class you never took, a talent you ignored. Each missed chance becomes a little stone in your shoe, annoying, constant, but also telling. That stone points to what you value. Here's a gentle exercise. Make 2 lists, one of regrets, one of desires. Compare them. See what overlaps. Those overlaps are your guides. They mark the places where regret and hope meet, and that meeting point is your next move. Hope and regret are cousins. Regret looks back. Hope looks forward. But both come from caring. Without caring, you wouldn't regret. Without caring, you wouldn't hope. So be grateful for that caring heart. It's the spark of your humanity. Creativity often dances with regret. A painter may look at an old canvas and see every flaw, but those flaws taught new strokes. A writer may cringe at early drafts, yet those drafts led to clearer words. Regret in art is a teacher, a stern one, yes, yet kind in the end. Community. We share regrets there too. Maybe you let someone down, missed a gathering, stayed silent when you should have spoken up. Regret reminds you that you belong, that you matter, and so you return with an open heart, ready to rebuild trust. Health regrets can haunt us long after youth. Days we skipped exercise, meals we overindulged, nights we stayed up too late. Regret knocks at your door and says, take better care. And you can. One day at a time, one healthy choice at a time. Now, never think regret only lives in sorrow. It also lives in joy's shadow. After a wonderful moment, regret whispers, that was perfect. Will you ever feel this again? But you can meet that regret with gratitude, hold the moment close, then open your arms to the next one. There's a quiet beauty in regret's glow. It lights up the gaps between what was and what could be. Use that light to guide your steps. Let it show you where compassion is needed. For yourself first, then for others. Sometimes regret comes dressed as guilt. Guilt can be heavier, but guilt asks a different question. Did I do wrong? Regret asks, did I choose better? Guilt holds you back. Regret can push you forward. Learn to tell them apart. Philosophers call this moral growth. You look at past actions, find a misstep, then choose to act differently next time. Regret is the record of your past. Action is the promise of your future. Think on this. Every mistake you make writes a letter to your future self. Those letters pile up. If you ignore them, they clutter your mind. But if you open them, read them, and respond, you'll find a conversation across time. A dialogue that shapes who you become. Regret also has a sibling called compassion. When you see your mistakes, treat yourself kindly. Speak to yourself like you would to a dear friend. I'm sorry I faltered. I'll do better. That kindness softens regret's bite. It turns regret into a gentle teacher. I remember a time I failed someone who trusted me. I carried that failure in my heart for years. One day, I wrote a letter of apology. I never sent it, but I read it aloud in the garden. Voice steady, heart open. The words gave me peace. Regret's lessons often arrive in stillness, in silent moments before sleep, in slow walks under a quiet sky. That silence holds space for reflection. Let it be your sanctuary, a place where you can sort through regret with a calm mind. Ever ask why some regrets fade while others linger? The ones tied to relationships and values stick the longest because they touch who you are. They ask, are you living true? And that question is worth remembering. Now, your dear old grandpa isn't here to solve all regrets. But here's what I promise. You are not alone. Every person you meet carries a suitcase of regrets, some heavy, some light. You can share your suitcase, lend a hand to lighten the load, or ask someone to help you with yours. That sharing is healing. Regret in solitude can feel like a prison. Regret in company can feel like a shared journey. Reach out. You'll be surprised how many hands will meet yours. Let me tell you about a concept called anti-fragility. Nassim Taleb coined it. It means growing stronger through stress, like bones thickening under weight. Regret is a weight, but used well, it makes you stronger. You fall, you feel the regret, but you rise with more wisdom, and that wisdom shapes a more resilient you, a you that listens deeper, that cares harder, that moves forward with courage. Courage isn't the absence of regret. It's acting in spite of regret. Stepping onto the next road even when the last one left scars. That's real courage. And remember, no one regrets kindness. No one regrets love. Even if it didn't turn out as planned. You may regret that love ended, but not that you loved. So let regret guide you to love more fully. As you journey on, my dear, mark the milestones of regret transformed, a bridge rebuilt, a promise kept, a letter of apology, a new habit formed. Each one is a victory. Regret may be a heavy companion, but it need not be a burden you drag forever. Lift it, turn it over, read its message, then set it back, lightly, and move on. We've talked about how regret guides our choices. Now let's look at what regret teaches about patience. Patience isn't weakness, it's strength. Regret shows us that some wounds take time to heal. A heavy heart needs moments of quiet, like a valley waiting for rain. Think of a farmer sowing seeds. He plants today, then he waits. He tends, he waters, he trusts. He doesn't dig up the soil every hour to check for sprouts. Regret asks us to do the same with our hearts. Plant lessons, then wait. You may ask, how long, Grandpa? There's no finish line. Patience is an open door. You walk through it one slow step at a time. Philosophers call this amor fati, love of fate, a stoic lesson. If life hands you regret, embrace it, not as a burden, but as your own story, even its hardest chapters. Now, let me share a story. A young woman I knew lost her voice. She tried to write words that failed her. She felt regret in every blank page. She blamed herself. Then she found a tiny notebook, just 5 lines each night. She wrote one regret. Then she wrote one act of kindness she performed that day. Over weeks, her regrets lost their sting. Her kindness notes shone brighter. She gained a voice again through simple acts. Regret and gratitude can walk hand in hand. They both come from noticing. Regret notices pain. Gratitude notices blessing. Together, they reveal a richer view of life. Here's a practice for you, my dear. At dawn, when the world is still, think of one regret, just one. Then think of one thing you're grateful for, one act of kindness you did, one moment of beauty you witnessed. Let regret and gratitude balance you like scales. Why do this? Because regret unpaired by gratitude can tip you into worry. But regret with gratitude becomes a guide to what matters most. Let's explore regret's relation to hope. Regret lives in the past. Hope lives in the future. Together, they frame our present. Regret says, I wish I had. Hope says, I will. Present says, I choose. When you feel regret, Ask, what hope grows from this? Then ask, what choice can I make today? These questions weave regret into a plan for change. There's a psychological tool called implementation intention. It's a fancy name. Simply put, you pair a situation with an action. If I feel regret about not calling my friend, then I will call them tomorrow at noon. That simple link turns regret into action. I remember feeling regret for months over not visiting my aunt before she passed. One morning, I wrote that implementation intention. The next day, I sat by her grave. I read her letters aloud. I felt her presence. The regret eased. Here's another truth. Regret can sharpen your vision. Imagine regret as a lens. It highlights the moments you want to change. It throws other things into soft focus. Use that lens, see what matters, then clear away distractions. In Buddhism, they speak of the middle way. Avoid extremes. Regret warns us of extremes. Too much pride, too much fear. It shows us where we tipped over, then we step back to balance. Balance isn't a static point. It's a dance. You sway. You catch your center. Then you sway again and catch it again. Regret is the music guiding that dance. Now, I want to talk about our own stories. Each of us carries a narrative, a tale of who we are. Regret edits that tale. It points out where the plot went dark. Then it offers an alternative chapter. Think of your life as a novel. Regret is the editor's note in the margin. Here you veered off course. Here you missed an opportunity. But you, the author, hold the pen. You decide the next scene. So ask yourself, what chapter do you want next? And write it. Even if the ink is shaky, even if your hand trembles, that trembling shows you care. We often fear regret's echo. We think it will follow us forever. But silence can follow regret too. When we ignore it, it grows louder. But when we honor it, it quiets. So honor your regrets. Listen. Thank them for showing you the way. Then whisper back, I hear you. My dear, life is full of turns. Some lead to joy, some to sorrow. Regret marks the sorrowful turns. It teaches you to choose differently next time. You might ask, what about regrets so deep they feel impossible to change? Then I'll tell you this. Change begins in the smallest step. A single thought, a soft word, a silent promise. Did you ever regret not studying harder in school? Maybe it left you shy in conversation, but you can learn at any age. Read one paragraph each night, write one reflection, take one class online. Those tiny efforts build into something real. Regret serves our growth when we treat it like a coach, not a judge. A coach says, you can improve. A judge says, you failed. Choose the coach. In mindfulness practice, they guide you to observe your thoughts like clouds passing. Regret is one of those clouds. It drifts in, it drifts out. It doesn't define the whole sky. Next time regret sweeps in, sit quietly. Breathe. Imagine the regret as a cloud. Watch it. Name it. Then let it pass. And if it comes back, that's okay. Clouds return. No need to chase them away. Just notice, then continue. Now, let's turn to regret in love. Romantic regret can wound deeply. The words you never said, the risks you never took, the doors you left unopened, and the doors you slammed too hard. Love always carries risks. Yet regret whispers, why didn't you try? And that question is your answer. Love anyway. even if your heart trembles, even if you fear rejection. I once saw a man confess to his lifelong love at 80. He'd carried regret for decades. Yet when he spoke his truth, her eyes filled with tears. They held hands in a quiet garden. Regret softened into connection. That's the gift regret can give. A nudge toward vulnerability, toward speaking the words that matter. And remember, no one regrets tenderness. No one regrets compassion, not in love, not in friendship. So let regret guide you to kindness. Let it remind you to speak gently, to listen deeply, to hold space for others. My dear, regrets can also be shared. You don't need to bear them alone. A kind friend, a patient partner, a wise mentor, they can help you sort through the weight. They can offer a mirror you trust. In group therapy, people share regrets around a table. They discover they're not alone. Those shared regrets create bonds. They turn isolation into community. Regret shared is regret halved, and shared wisdom doubles. Now, I want to weave in a deeper idea: authenticity. Existentialists speak of living authentically. Regret shows you where you lived inauthentically, where you followed others' maps instead of your own. So listen to regret's map. It points you back to your own dreams, to the person you truly are beneath the noise. How do you live authentically? Start small. Choose honest words. Share real feelings. Say no when you mean no. Say yes when your heart says yes. Regret will tell you if you stray again, and that's all right. Straying is part of the journey. Regret is the signpost that guides you back on track. There's also room here for creativity. Regret can spur new art. A painter may splash regret into color. A poet may turn regret into verse. A musician may transform regret into melody. I painted a small picture once. Dark blues for regret, bright oranges for hope. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. People said it moved them. They saw their own regrets in it, and they found comfort. So if words aren't enough, try art. Write a poem, sketch a shape, sing a line. Let regret flow through creation. In sum, my dear, regret is dense with lessons. It asks of you honesty, patience, action, forgiveness, gratitude, love, creativity, community, authenticity. Regret isn't comfortable, but it's a gift wrapped in rough paper. Unwrap it, learn from it, then pass the gift on. There's more to regret than sorrow, my dear. It's woven into how we remember. Memory isn't flawless. It shifts, it colors, it hides some moments and magnifies others. Regret lives in those shadows. It highlights what we fear we'll never fix. But memory can be guided. You're the gardener of your thoughts. You can prune the overgrowth of regret. You can train your mind to notice lessons, not just failures. Cognitive behavioral therapy calls this cognitive restructuring. Fancy name, simple idea. Change how you think about the past, and you change how you feel today. Think of regret as a lens you can swap out. One lens shows only what went wrong. A different lens shows what went right, too. You decide which lens you wear. Kid, let me share another story. A young man I knew spent years burdened by a childhood mistake. He never spoke up when a friend was in trouble. He blamed himself. But one day, he found his friend again. Not the same child, but an adult. He told her his regret. She said, "I needed someone then, but I found my own strength." She forgave him. That act freed him. He shifted his regret lens to one of compassion for himself and for her. Compassion plays a crucial role. Psychologist Kristen Neff studies self-compassion. She says, speak to yourself like you would to a friend. You'd say, "You're forgiven." Then do the same for your past. Regret also fuels moral growth. Kohlberg's stages of moral development describe how we mature in our sense of right and wrong. Regret is a sign you've outgrown an old moral lens. You feel discomfort because you've moved toward a higher sense of justice or kindness. That discomfort propels you forward. So when you feel regret about something you once did or didn't do, celebrate it. It means your moral compass has sharpened. There's a field called narrative identity. It studies how we tell our life story. Regret is an editor's note in that story. It marks a chapter that needs revision. You're the author. You can write a sequel. You can change the ending of the next chapter. Ask yourself, if I could rewrite this part of my story, how would I do it? Maybe you'd have stayed at that job longer. Maybe you'd have said, "I love you" more often. Maybe you'd have tried painting, even though you feared the blank canvas. Then take that rewritten scene off the page and into your life. Here's a dense idea from logotherapy, Viktor Frankl's school of thought. He taught that the search for meaning is our primary drive. Regret signals a meaning gap. You regret because your actions didn't align with what you find meaningful. That gap is a compass pointing to your purpose. So regard regret as an invitation to live more meaningfully. If you regret not helping someone, volunteer. If you regret not expressing yourself, pick up a pen or a paintbrush. Fill that meaning gap. Kid, have you heard of temporal focus theory? It explores how we view past, present, and future. People who balance these time perspectives tend to be happier. Regret anchors you in the past. Use it wisely, but don't live there. Pull yourself into the present by acting on what you've learned. And then let hope carry you into the future. Here's an exercise. Visualize regret as a stone in your pocket. Feel its weight. Then in your mind, drop that stone into a lake. Watch the ripples. Those ripples are the lessons you share with others. They travel outward. They create change beyond yourself. Philosophy and psychology both remind us, connection heals. Shared regret fosters empathy. When you admit your mistake, others often admit theirs. A circle of vulnerability forms. That circle becomes a source of strength. I remember a group of old friends, folks who'd known each other since school. We met one evening and shared one regret each. We didn't judge. We only listened. By the end, the room felt lighter. We felt closer. Regret had become our bond. And then there's creativity. Regret can spark innovation. When you regret an old design that failed, you iterate. When you regret a recipe that went wrong, you invent a new one. Silicon Valley's mantra is fail fast, learn faster. They embrace regret as rapid feedback. You don't need a startup to use that mindset. Try it with small crafts. Regret the crooked shelf you built? Tear it down. Build it again, stronger. That hands-on reshaping of regret into skill builds confidence. Don't forget the role of culture. Some cultures view regret as shame, others as growth. Notice how your upbringing shapes how you experience regret. Maybe you learned to hide mistakes. If so, practice naming them aloud. That exposure dulls regret's sting. My dear, resilience is born in that naming. You say, I regret this. Then you say, what will I do now? That two-step process, acknowledge, then act, builds the bridge from regret to resilience. There's also something called the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks stick in your mind. Regret is an unfinished task. Completing the task, making amends, starting a new habit, allows your mind to release it. So if you regret skipping exercise last year, start today. Even a 10-minute walk completes the task just enough to diffuse the regret. Mindfulness teachers teach non-judgmental awareness. They say, notice regret without labeling it good or bad. Just see it. Let it pass. That reduces its charge. And then there's acceptance and commitment therapy. It teaches you to accept unwanted feelings and commit to valued action. You accept regret as part of your experience, then you choose what matters most and act on it. All these approaches point to the same truth. Regret isn't a monster in the closet. It's a teacher in plain sight. Now, let's talk about legacy. One day, you'll look back on your life. Regrets will surface, but also triumphs. Both shape your legacy. So shape your regrets now. Turn them into stories of growth you'll proudly share. I once attended a dinner where elder friends passed a candle around. Each spoke a regret and then shared how they transformed it. By the end, the table glowed. The warmth wasn't just from the candle, it was from shared humanity. Regret can be sacred. It honors that you've lived fully, you've cared deeply, you've risked, you've erred, and you've learned. My dear kid, you'll face regrets as long as you breathe. But you'll also face choices, actions, moments of kindness, words of love. Each one balances the scales. Let the scale tip toward wisdom, toward compassion, toward purpose. That's how regret transforms into grace. Regret lives in memory's shadows. Our minds rewrite the past. We forget details. We amplify failures. Psychologists call it reconstructive memory. Regret exploits those gaps and fills them with what-ifs, should-haves, could-haves. Emotions tag these memories. Neuroscience shows the amygdala stamps moments with fear or shame. Regret becomes an emotional echo. It resurfaces uninvited. It colors new thoughts. But knowing it's just a tag helps you notice it. Self-determination theory says we thrive on autonomy, competence, relatedness. Regret often signals a loss in one of these areas. Maybe you felt powerless, or unskilled, or disconnected. Hearing regret is your mind saying, here's where you want more freedom or more connection. Carol Dweck's growth mindset reminds us that abilities can improve. Regret from a failed attempt doesn't mark you as incapable. It points to practice. It shines a light on skills you can hone. Use regret as an invitation to learn. Learned helplessness results when we believe we have no control. Regret can counter that. It reminds you of past choices. You did act before. You can act again. Each small decision chips away at helplessness. Life's a story, and Dan P. McAdams calls our self-narrative narrative identity. Regret is the editor's note in your manuscript. It marks chapters to rewrite. You hold the pen, you decide the next scene. Viktor Frankl taught logotherapy. Meaning is our primary drive. Regret reveals a gap between your actions and your purpose. That gap? It's a compass. It points toward more meaningful choices. Stoics practiced negative visualization and memento mori. They imagined loss to sharpen gratitude. Regret does something similar. It reminds you what you cherish. Then you value the present more deeply. Taoism speaks of wu wei, action through non-action. Regret can make you force your way forward. Instead, lean into the flow. Let regret guide, not push. You'll find easier paths. Zen teaches non-attachment. Observe regret like a cloud passing through the sky of your mind. Don't chase it. Don't judge it. Let it drift away on its own. Mindfulness offers the rain practice. Recognize regret. Allow it. Investigate its message. Non-identify with it. This simple sequence transforms regret from enemy to teacher. Acceptance and commitment. Therapy warns against fusion, letting regret overtake you. Diffuse by noticing it's just a thought. Then commit to actions aligned with your values. Regret still shows up, but it no longer commands the stage. Kohlberg's moral development stages track how our sense of right and wrong evolves. Regret tells you when you've grown. When you look back and cringe, you've reached a new level of moral awareness. Social regret often involves impression management. We worry we embarrassed ourselves. An apology is a repair attempt. It signals sincerity. It often mends the relationship quicker than expected. Positive psychology studies strengths, not deficits. Regret reveals what you value most: honesty, courage, kindness. Then you can channel those strengths forward. Each choice becomes aligned with your core. Behavioral economics explores counterfactual thinking. Upward counterfactuals imagine better outcomes. Downward, imagine worse. Upward regrets drive improvement. My dear, use them to plan smarter choices. Daniel Kahneman's dual process theory splits thinking into fast system 1 and slow system 2. Regret often follows snap judgments. Slow down. Give system 2 more room. A moment's pause can save you years of regret. Resilience isn't bouncing back to who you were. It's growing through suffering. Post-traumatic growth shows that hardship can yield new strengths. Let regret mark your growth. Each scar tells of wisdom gained. John Gottman studied relationships and repair attempts. Regret can be a repair bid. I regret this. Can we try again? Honest bids restore trust. They transform regret into connection. Throughout life, regret and hope intertwine. Regret looks back. Hope looks forward. The present is your choice between the two. Choose a step aligned with both. One day, kid, you'll look back at all your regrets. Beside each, you'll see a lesson learned. A door opened, a heart expanded. Regret reaches deep into our brains. It lights up the anterior cingulate cortex, our error detector. It wakes us up to missteps. Then the prefrontal cortex tries to reason. It asks, what now? Neuroplasticity says new patterns can form. Regret is the spark. Kid, regret is not only emotion, it's data, raw feedback from your life. You get to analyze it like a scientist in a lab. Observe the variables, your actions, your values, your outcomes, then design a better experiment. Try again. In psychology, they call this metacognition. Thinking about thinking. Regret forces metacognition. It says, look closer at your choices. When you do, you gain insight. You see patterns. You understand triggers. You can change them. Self-efficacy grows each time you face regret and act. Bandura taught us that Belief in our ability shapes our success. Regret shakes belief, but action rebuilds it. Each apology, each correction, each new effort says, I can. Let's talk about moral injury. It's the deep regret when we violate our own ethics. Soldiers feel it, doctors feel it, anyone with a strong moral code. That injury lodges in the soul. Healing begins with acknowledgement, then with reparation. Even small acts of restitution can mend a rift. Kid, you might regret not speaking up when a joke turned cruel. You might regret not intervening. You can still intervene now. Stand for someone in need. That new action echoes backward. It reframes the past in your mind. You become the person you wished you'd been. Regret touches time. Time is not linear in our minds. We relive past regrets like they're present. Mindfulness teaches us to anchor to now, but we can also anchor to lessons. Carry regret's wisdom into the present moment. Let it inform your choices here and now. Eudaimonia, Aristotle's flourishing, is what regret points toward. When you regret an action, it's because it didn't align with your highest self. Flourishing demands alignment between virtues and actions. Regret signals a fracture in that alignment. Choose virtue next time. Courage, temperance, justice, compassion. Stoics called internal alignment living according to nature. They practiced evening reflection. They asked, what did I do wrong? How can I improve tomorrow? That nightly ritual turns regret into gradual progress. You chip away at flaws. You polish your character. Cognitive behavioral therapy uses downward arrow technique. You identify a regretful thought. Then you ask, what does that mean about me? You uncover core beliefs. I'm unlovable. I'm incompetent. Regret reveals those beliefs. Then you challenge them. Evidence for and against. Replace distortions. Kid, you're more than your regrets. You're more than your worst mistake. But regrets cling when they feed a false self-image. Shine a light on them. Watch them shrink. Attachment theory shows how early relationships shape regret. If caregivers were critical, you internalize harsh self-judgment. Regret becomes constant. Therapy invites you to offer yourself the compassion you missed. Imagine a caring parent inside you saying, "It's okay, you tried." Narrative therapy encourages externalizing problems. Say, "Regret is visiting me," not "I am regret." That slight shift gives you control. You host regret. It doesn't own you. Kid, think of regret's alphabet. R for reflection, E for empathy, G for growth, R for responsibility, E for exploration, T for transformation. Spell it in your mind. Let each letter remind you of the path. Behavioral neuroscience shows that forming new habits requires repetition. Regret primes you to change, but change happens through small steps. Tiny habits, atomic habits, as James Clear says. 1% better today. 1% regrets reframed. Let's dive into decision theory. Regret theory suggests people choose to minimize future regret over maximizing expected utility. We avoid choices that could lead to regret, but avoidance can generate regret too. Better to choose boldly, accept the outcome, and learn. That risk-taking builds resilience. In existentialism, Sartre reminds us that each choice defines our essence. Regret highlights choices we wish we'd made differently, but each new choice redefines us. You're rewriting your essence constantly. Regret is just a note in the margin. Kid, you're not bound to the regretful past. You're free to choose now. Freedom can overwhelm. That's why regret sometimes paralyzes. But paralysis is a choice too. Recognize it. Make a micro decision. Stand up. Stretch. Speak one kind sentence. That small act breaks the paralysis. Then there's anticipatory regret. Fear of future regret makes us hesitate. You might never send that letter because you dread the regret if it's ignored. But inaction breeds regret too. The regret of never knowing can be sharper. Ask yourself, which regret hurts more? The one of action or of inaction? Make peace with that answer and move. Kid, let me tell you about post-decisional regret. After a big decision, you second guess. You compare outcomes with alternatives. That's natural, but you can limit it. Give yourself a decision window. After you decide, wait a set time, an hour, a day, then close the window. No more comparisons. Full engagement with what you chose. Memory reconsolidation offers hope. Neuroscience shows that when we recall a memory, we can alter its emotional charge. Each time you revisit a regretful memory with a new perspective, compassion, insight, acceptance, you rewrite its impact. The emotional sting fades. Kid, you're an ongoing experiment in memory reconsolidation. Each mindful reflection can soften regret. We talk about grit, Angela Duckworth's term for passion and perseverance. Regret fuels grit when you channel disappointment into renewed effort. You regret quitting too soon? Then persist longer next time. That hardiness builds confidence. In ethics, moral repair describes actions to restore integrity. It can be verbal apology, material compensation, public acknowledgement. The method depends on context, but the principle holds: repair heals both parties. It dissolves regret's tension. Kid, don't underestimate small gestures. A bleeding heart can heal from a tiny stitch, a note, a call, a shared meal. These fragile acts mend the deep wounds regret can carve. Positive reframing asks, what gift does this regret carry? Sometimes it points to a hidden strength, a lesson in empathy, a new skill, a deeper humility. Search for that gift. It's always there. Then there's secular forgiveness. You forgive not for the other person, but for yourself. It's not condoning, it's releasing your grip. You untie the knots of regret. You breathe again. Psychologist Marsha Linehan's DBT teaches radical acceptance. Embrace reality as it is, including past mistakes. Then focus on what you can control. That acceptance liberates energy for positive action. Kid, I want you to remember, regret is universal. There's no person alive without it. It's part of our shared humanity. In admitting it, we connect. We learn we're not alone. That shared vulnerability builds trust. Finally, let me weave it all together. Regret is neural signal. It's emotional wake-up call. It's moral compass. It's narrative editor. It's seedbed for growth. It's call to action. It's map to eudaimonia. It's whisper of purpose. It's architect of resilience. It's sculptor of character. Kid, let's go deeper still. Regret isn't just a feeling. It's a signal in a complex system. Our lives operate like dynamic networks of choices. Each choice feeds back into the system. Regret marks the feedback loop. It tells us where the system veered off. Think of your mind as a Bayesian engine. You hold priors. beliefs about yourself. Regret acts like new data. It forces you to update. You adjust your priors to better match reality. That shift reduces future surprise. It sharpens your expectations of self. Now, in reinforcement learning, regret minimization is key. Algorithms track the difference between actual and optimal reward. In life, regret is that difference. It nudges you toward actions that yield better reward and values. You learn faster. You explore wisely. You exploit what works. Consider second-order cybernetics. Observers observe themselves observing. Regret lets you step back. You see your own pattern of choices. You become both actor and witness. That dual role creates self-regulation. You correct course in real time. Let's touch on entropy. Systems move toward disorder. Without reflection, our lives scatter. Regret is the local decrease in entropy. It gathers scattered fragments into focus. It orders your priorities. It pushes you toward coherence. In systems theory, small changes can have big effects. Regret reshapes tiny habits. A single apology, a slight tweak in behavior. Over time, that tweak ripples through the network of your life. It alters trajectories. Now, have you heard of the planning fallacy? We underestimate time and effort. We plunge in. Then regret floods when deadlines loom. To counter it, use mental contrasting. Visualize both the goal and the obstacle. Regret sharpens your image of the obstacle. Then you plan around it. Then there's the pre-mortem technique. Imagine a project failed. List reasons why. That lists potential regrets. You address them before they happen. Regret becomes foresight. Philosophy offers more. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence asks, would you relive this exact life forever? If regret clings, you'd balk. That question pushes you to choose differently, to live without regret, to affirm your choices. Kierkegaard spoke of the leap of faith. Regret stems from fear of wrong moves, yet taking the leap, even into unknown, beats paralysis. You learn in motion. The leap dissolves many regrets. Hegel's dialectic, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Your regret is the antithesis to your proud thesis. You wrestle with both. The synthesis emerges as new wisdom. That dialectical dance propels growth. In Jungian psychology, the shadow holds disowned parts. Regret shines light into the shadow. It reveals qualities you ignored. Perhaps courage you refused. Perhaps kindness you suppressed. You integrate those parts. You become more whole. Existential psychologists call this authenticity. Regret points to moments when you acted inauthentically. Then you face the choice again. You choose authenticity next time. That shapes your identity. Let's explore moral repair again. In communities, public apologies restore trust. In private, whispered apologies restore self-trust. Regret signals the trust gap. Repair rebuilds integrity. You become reliable to yourself. Cognitive biases feed regret too. Hindsight bias makes events seem predictable after they happen. You lash yourself for ignorance you never had. Recognize hindsight bias. Forgive your past self for unseen twists. Focalism traps you in one regret. You fixate on a single choice. Therapy teaches you to broaden your view. See other successes. Balance your narrative. Regret loses its monopoly on memory. Finally, system thinking reminds you that you're nested in larger ecosystems. Your choices affect family, friends, community. Regret from one choice can cascade outward, but corrective action can cascade too. A single act of kindness repairs multiple connections. So kid, regret is dense with roles. It's data, it's signal, it's lens, it's wrench in the gears, it's compass and catalyst, it's error detector and system optimizer, it's guide deeper into self-knowledge. Carry these ideas with care. Let regret be your feedback, your coach in complexity, your spark in the network of your mind and life. Let it push you toward wiser priors, toward better habits, toward authentic growth. And if you ever feel lost in the tangle of systems and loops, remember, one small act of repair brings clarity, one deep apology, one fresh plan, one shift in perspective, one choice aligned with your values. That's all it takes to rewire the system. Walk gently, kid. Walk with courage. Regret will accompany you, but now you know how to wield its power, to shape it into wisdom, to guide your life's complex journey. That's all for now, my dear. I'll see you soon when the next lesson finds us. Take care of yourself, and remember, every choice matters, even the ones you wish you hadn't made, because they made you wiser, and that's a gift worth carrying.